given, that's how we live it. Don't be mad at the system, it's simply how we've existed. I hear a lot of people talking like they politicians and choose to be an accountant because it's safe in a business. Not because they want to do it, just because they heard it pays. And who the fuck wants to be poor knowing that's how we've been raised? Society is getting heavy, I can feel the weight. The pressure of success is like 100 million pounds of shit.
How you guys doing today? It's Anthony Gangi. Welcome to another episode of Chair Talk. Guys, we're going to meet a jail administrator today. Usually a lot of my stuff kind of centers around the prison system, so it's great to have someone that represents the jail come onto the venue, especially someone at that high level. Today we're going to discuss what it takes to run a jail, and also more specifically, what it takes to maybe run a jail during this pandemic. Now, my guest is, and I hope I'm saying it correctly, Jail Administrator Andrew Abney-Brots.
Brots, close.
Brots. Oh man! So I got a chance to meet you on LinkedIn. First off, thank you for supporting the stuff that I do with the book that I have coming out. Means the world to me. Do you mind introducing yourself to my audience?
Sure, absolutely. Again, my name's Andrew Abney-Brots. I'm the jail administrator, jail captain of the Wayne County Sheriff's Office in Indiana. I've been in corrections for 18 years, since 2002. I've been the jail administrator for the last 8.
Obviously, it's extremely tough times right now. So for those in those leadership positions, we definitely feel you, as well as those, of course, on our front line. But also for those that are leading the way, I know there's a lot of pressure. Now, guys, when we come back from our sponsors, we're going to get to know Andrew a little bit more. And then we're going to discuss what it takes to run a prison. You know, what are the things that, probably crossing the programming, staff burnout. I'm sure you go through everything that we go through at a prison level. And then I want to touch in briefly what it's like, especially now, to manage a jail. Now, as always, guys, the show is Chair Talk. If you haven't, please subscribe, interact, engage, comment, hit that bell. Bell's going to notify you every time I post a video. We're going to go to our sponsor, and we come back. Let's talk about running a jail. Stand by.
I wanted to attend a university that had an intelligence program. I wanted to look at problems different. I wanted to increase my critical thinking abilities. AMU offered those avenues to expand. Obtaining your degree as an adult, you're actually paying yourself and investing in yourself. You can't put a dollar on it. It's priceless. It's something that can never be taken away from you.
American Military University. Learn from the leader.
Guys, inmate manipulation is a course that is highly needed. It's the process that's so slow moving and subtle that you don't realize it's happening. When inmates choose to manipulate, they manipulate our need to react. Situational awareness and insight is going to save your career. It's going to save you from doing foolish things. Listen to your gut. So the more insight we have, the more we can recognize what isn't so overt, and we can correct our behavior before we fall into a trap that we can't get out of. If you allow an inmate to pull you out of your prescribed role, you are opening up a door for a host of problems. Inmate manipulation, the psychology behind inmate manipulation. Available now. Link in description. All right, and we're back. Hey, Andrew, do you mind just telling me a little bit about your career, like how you started, what made you get into this profession, and how did you move all the way up to an admin position?
Yeah, sure. I was actually a security manager at a department store, catching shoplifters and loss prevention. And I was able to meet a lot of the local law enforcement that would come and arrest the shoplifters. And actually, I worked side by side with a gentleman who worked full time at the county jail, and just started talking to me about it. Hey, you want to come down and just tour the jail, take a look at it, kind of get to know the people. And jail concept was pretty new. I didn't really know a whole lot about jails. Really, public perception of jail is they just don't know. Same thing in just corrections in general is it's negative. We do things to not treat the inmates correctly. So that was my perception going into just going down and touring the county facility. Once I actually got into that jail, I thought, holy crap, this is a really good profession. They're really good people. The inmates aren't as bad as what, the television shows kind of perceived them to be. So I applied, got hired, started off as an entry-level correctional officer, and worked my way up. Became jail deputy, was able to do court transports, go to DOC facilities, transport inmates to other counties, etc. Worked my way up to jail corporal. A couple years later, got promoted to a jail sergeant. Went straight from sergeant to jail captain when previous sheriff Jeff Kappa was elected into office in 2011. So that's kind of my career in a nutshell. And it's been a fast, wild ride. It's been an enjoyable ride, and I've really had a good time.
Now, what are some of the responsibilities for a jail administrator?
Jail administrator, you oversee entire facility operations, and that's not just on custody side. You're talking civilian staff. You run a kitchen, so you have to employ civilian kitchen staff, civilian clerks that run the front of your house. They answer the phones. Medical department. Now we do use a contractual medical company, but I do oversee that for the sheriff. And really, I report directly to the county sheriff, and he runs the entire agency. I run the jail.
Right now, I know right now, obviously, there's a big thing when it comes to reentry. That's a big concern. So before we get to staff, just in case we have anybody from the outside looking in that may have family locked up or just wanting to know what we're doing to help inmates reenter society, do you guys have any programs that start behind the wall and then work its way out into the community?
Absolutely. We have a pretty strong substance abuse program with a local mental health company that we use, and they can meet up with those counselors once they get released from jail and continue their treatment outside, once they've gone back into society. We also have another program. It's called Choices. They come in. They're more of a kind of a middleman for the inmate. They hook the inmate up with housing if they need for housing, substance abuse treatment on the outside. So they're a really good resource to really help the inmates once they get out, not to get back in with the peer group that they got arrested with.
Right now, I know in the jail setting, the length of time is kind of dependent on the court, where if you're in the prison setting, we know that this inmate's going to be here with the state for that amount of time. Is it hard to get inmates connected to a program without really knowing how long they're going to be there with you?
Well, really, we have the audience that we kind of look for those programs. A lot of our level 6 felonies in Indiana, they stay at the local level instead of going to DOC. So we can kind of target those populations that are going to be with us for a year to a year and a half. Misdemeanors that are doing their county time, we know they're going to be there for 6 months. So yeah, we do have that captive audience similar to Department of Corrections, where we can offer that program to them. It's free for the county. We have volunteers come in and do it and try to get them help.
And when you say level 6 offenders, those are low-level offenders that are more, they're your inmates, right? They're not going to the state at that point, right?
Correct. It's the lowest level felony offender. And back in 2014, the state said, hey, DOC is overpopulated. We're going to keep those low level offenders at the county level.
Right. And now, like what you said, so you also have a lot of volunteers that come into the facility to go ahead and provide programs to the inmate population? That's
correct. Yeah. Counselors from our mental health companies in town, they come in, they do about 35 hours a week. The inmates have to apply, fill out an application to join the program. And really it's dependent on need. If the counselor identifies those inmates that are in serious need and have that ability to better themselves once they get back out on the street, they kind of, grab those people and bring them in.
And how many beds is your facility? How many inmates?
416 beds. Pre-COVID, average daily population was around 350. Now we're floating around 240. So that's kind of lessened the stress on staff. It's lessened the stress on classification and medical and housing. So that's kind of our facility in a nutshell.
Yeah, and I kind of want to get into staff, obviously. So obviously right now, especially during the pandemic, our frontline staff is being hit with a lot, that. And it's the unpredictable, especially with COVID. You just don't know when your facility is going to be hit hard. I'm dealing with it right now. We're always the center of it all at where I'm at. So, obviously for those brave men and women that work that front line at any position, the ones that are coming into this correctional facility or the jail day in, day out, bravo. Obviously, we appreciate you. How many officers do you have to, with the ratio of what you said, 200 inmates? or a little over 200?
240 on average. Yeah. If I'm fully staffed, which that's the key word, is being fully staffed, I have about 40. Let's see where I'm at. 48 line staff, and that's not to include corporals and sergeants on each squad. And we run 12-hour shifts.
Okay, so you have 2 shifts then, right? A first shift. So are you 6 to 6 and 6 to 6? I take it.
Correct.
Right, and you said 40 line staff, and then obviously that doesn't count your supervisors, correct? And do you have like I guess, is it shift captains on each shift, or?
A corporal who the line staff report directly to as their immediate supervisor, and then a shift sergeant. So, and I have 4 of those each. So I have 4 corporals, 4 sergeants.
Now, during this pandemic, have you guys been hit hard at all, or?
Really not. There's other jails throughout the state. The bigger ones, Marion County, which is in Indianapolis, they've been hit really hard in the surrounding counties around there. Once you get more rural into the outlying counties, it's, the numbers drop. Of course, your population's lower. You don't deal with it a lot. We've been really fortunate to keep it out of our inmate population. We've had staff members that have been positive, and then, they recover at home and then come back to work.
Now, obviously, the concerns about jails a little bit different than the prisons is the intake, because you're taking them right off the streets, which means that the threat is greater. So how do you manage the intakes now?
Well, we have a 14-day quarantine that our medical department put into place, and that's statewide throughout their other facilities. They go into a quarantine housing unit, isolated for 14 days, and that's kind of how we are combating that.
And is the staff fully PPE geared?
Yes, absolutely. We wear masks. It's a requirement by the sheriff and myself that they're wearing a mask within 6 feet or walking down the hallway, or back in general population, and gloves at all times, to keep us safe.
And coming into the facility, are they doing temperature checks?
Absolutely. For everybody, even volunteers, staff, inmates, bookends, arresting officers, everybody.
So, and what about, are you guys doing any form of on-site testing?
We do. We actually just received 80 rapid tests from the county health department. We did have tests that we acquired from an outside agency before, but now that the tests have become more prevalent, they're a little easier to administer than the original ones where you had to really get back in there. Now these rapid tests are pretty easy to administer. But yes, we do test on site. It's a pretty quick turnaround, 24 to 48 hours.
Now, I know for us is that you want to make sure that education's key during this pandemic. I mean, unfortunately, you have the news that gives their interpretation, and it's not always 100%. And unfortunately, it puts a little bit of fear both in the inmates and in staff. So what we try to do our best is we try to educate the population as well as staff, and we try to also develop consistent plans so the inmates could see some trust in staff, but more importantly, staff could see trust in management. So how important right now is that communication, first with the higher level, the executive staff and the population, but also definitely the executive staff and the frontline professionals?
That's very, very important and very critical in our situation. We have access to put information on the inmate kiosk system in the housing units. Just reminders. Hey, make sure you got your masks on. Make sure you're trying to stay 6 feet away from your cellmate. And that's really tough in space when you're locked up with somebody 24/7. The officers, the frontline officers and supervisors are constantly reminding the inmates when they're walking down the hall, hey, put your mask up, put it up over your nose. When the sheriff and the major come downstairs from their offices, they have their masks on. Or just, friendly reminders to staff, hey, make sure you got your mask on, because that's our number one concern, of course, is staff, keeping everybody healthy, and then also keeping the inmate population healthy.
Right. And obviously, are you being provided with all the equipment that you need? You're not running short on anything. What about the inmate population? Are they allowed to wear masks?
Absolutely. We give those masks for free. They are provided by the county health department, as well as gloves. We do use an outside vendor for gloves, but those are provided for free if we want to get those from the health department.
Now, when it comes to staff, if they do have a direct exposure, or if they do, if they're told that they're positive for COVID, how do you handle that? I mean, do you do, like, I know when this pandemic first started, if you had a staff that, let's say, was positive, you would have to kind of keep track of who they could have exposed within 48 hours of the test. And then basically, if they were inmates, the inmates would be quarantined. And if it was staff and it was a direct exposure, they also would be told they had to quarantine. But now that we're able to wear masks, the substantial contact lessens. So what's the procedure if you have a staff member that, let's do it this way though. Let's say a staff member tests positive through the on-site testing that you have. What would be the procedure at that point?
They immediately get sent home. They're told to contact their family doctor for further assistance, and they wait out that period at home. I keep in really good contact with them. Human Resources keeps in really good contact with the employee. Once they're symptom free, they go get retested, and then they get a letter from their doctor stating that they're ready to come back to work. So it's not like hey, I'm feeling better, I'm ready to come back, boss. It's let's go get retested, let's get checked out by a physician.
And is there trace contacting too? Do you basically make note that if these are the people that they could have had contact with, and what do you do with those that could have had? I mean, right now there shouldn't be substantial exposure. I mean, all your employees should be maintaining social distance and go ahead and wear the mask. But sometimes we do break together, and at that point we may take our mask off to eat, and that's where there could be that substantial contact. What happens if they say that, I could have had substantial contact with this one employee?
Well, in that case, we kind of go above and beyond when it comes to contact tracing. I will have a whole shift go get tested just to be sure, because they could be asymptomatic and feel great. But hey, let's go get checked out just to make sure that we're not spreading that throughout the inmate population. That's kind of our biggest fear, is just a huge outbreak inside the jail. So, but like I said earlier, we're doing a really good job of controlling that.
And are the officers covered if they test positive?
Absolutely. They're covered by the county. They do get days paid off for that. So yes, they do.
We need more people to hear that, because there are still some states that are fighting for that. So it's great to hear someone from your level say that that is something that we do. That's something that we definitely need, because again, right now that would motivate people to tell the truth. Because if I was COVID positive, but I'm concerned that I don't have days and I'm not going to get covered, I may be a little hesitant to say that I'm COVID positive because I need money, and it's not saying it's the right thing, but this is a great way to motivate the truth. And I'm sure obviously through measures, if people decide to misuse it, that will also be handled 100%, correct?
Correct. That's correct.
Now, also, you came from the front line. You were an officer, traveled your way up through the custody ranks. I know we always tell people never forget your roots. What are some of the things that you brought from the bottom with you to the top?
Well, not forgetting where I came from. Number one, get out on the floor, be out there with your people, show support. I've taken inmates to court. I've taken hospital runs because we've been short-staffed, or other staff are, wrapped up and doing other duties inside the jail. So I'm not afraid to get out of my office and, do the work like I used to do. And actually, it's kind of refreshing sometimes. In my position now, primarily I deal with a lot of staffing issues with my correctional officers. I deal with the public a lot. I deal with the top administrators like the sheriff and the major. And when I am able to get into the inmate population again, it's like, oh, hey, I remember this. This is what I used to do every single day. So it's kind of refreshing to kind of get back with the inmates and, tell them to get off the tables or button up their jumpsuits. It's a good deal.
One of the things that I know Frontline looks for in a leader is someone that is not out to CYA all the time. Someone that, is willing to take full responsibility, basically, successes and the failures. And obviously in tough times like this, not only are you stepping up, but you're probably speaking a lot for the needs of your front line, correct? I'm sure there are some needs and you're at that, in the forefront, making sure they get what they need, correct?
Yes, very, yes. And, we're kind of in the age of looking at new products or looking at new ways to combat this whole virus deal. And we just recently purchased a decontamination cabinet with UVC lighting. That technology is out there now. So the sheriff has to petition the county government for the funds. We have the COVID CARES relief fund that we're trying to obtain to get equipment to help keep staff and inmates safe while they're at work.
let me ask you now, when I read your bio, what you sent me, I mean, you have really, I mean, you kind of gave us a quick little version of, you know, what you have done in this profession. But I was wondering if you could just break it down again, but kind of highlight what you have done based on the bio you gave me, because there's a lot of roads that you take or that you've taken. And the reason why I want people to understand this is because in corrections, a lot of people kind of dummy down what we do and what our role is, especially connected to the law enforcement circle. You work in a jail, you could be probably going through the same type of like the community, just not understanding the type of work that goes on behind the wall or the stuff that we actually do that people may not realize we do. And I read your bio. Can you just break down some of the stuff that you do besides, you know, being the jail administrator?
I've done a lot of work with the state, with the Indiana Sheriff's Association, as far as advanced jail officer training throughout the state, trying to get the, you know, the more of the advanced sections of corrections out there to other jail commanders, other officers in the state. I handle the jail hiring process and promotional process for the jail. You know, and a lot of times when I interview people for a corrections officer position, I always ask them, well, one of the questions is, why do you want to be a corrections officer? And a lot of the times it's, I want to use this as a stepping stone to get onto the road somewhere. And that kind of, you know, not frustrating. I understand, I get that piece, but once they get inside the door, I want to make sure that I hold on to them, because I'm trying, like, just like you are, Anthony, I am trying to make this a profession, corrections as a profession. And, you know, it's just, it is hard to get that public perception of jail as a stepping stone out of the minds of the public.
You know, I like how when you say, I actually did a video on that. I remember I was invited to an event for a local PD, just a gentleman who was lieutenant that really loved what we did in corrections. He admired us, and he gave me a chance to invite a few people. I was a sergeant at the time, so I invited a few of the officers, and it was great just to kind of have our interaction with other law enforcement professionals. But I remember when they went to ask one of the officers that I was with, like, hey, you know, just to get an understanding of, you know, what it is that they do, the person was like, well, right now I'm just a CO, but, you know, I'm going to be that police officer one day. And I let them have the interaction, but then I went back and I said, why couldn't you just leave it at being a CO? Because deep down inside, you probably felt when you said, I'm going to be a CO, that it wasn't good enough, that you had to add something else to qualify your statement. I said, the funny thing is that when we were at this event, we were equals. Like, this lieutenant brought us in and he put us up on such this high level. And it was the first time that I could see some outside recognition from another law enforcement agency. And when I created the video actually did very well. It's in the thousands of views. But it hit home because a lot of people may not realize that when they say that this profession is a stepping stone, it kind of insults those who are making this their career, you know, because they see the value in their work. Now, we're not saying that you can learn a lot from being in this profession. You can, but it's not a profession that you step on to get somewhere else. If you want to move and we'll support you. But this profession has enough integrity to stand on its own and be noble enough without being considered a stepping stone. And I like how you mentioned that, because a lot of people may not realize how insulting that is. Correct?
Correct. That's correct.
So again, so you just reached about 18 years, correct? You just completed 18 years in October?
That is correct.
So as a leader now, you know, before we come to a close, where do you see yourself going in the next 7 years? I'm assuming 25 and out, right?
Well, it can if I want it to be. You know, I'm pretty comfortable with where I am right now. Of course, I'm the highest I can go in the jail. So unless there's some sort of desire I gain down the road to become a sheriff and I can run for sheriff, then that's probably what I will do. But, you know, I owe it to the people of the jail to make a difference. And that's what I vowed to my prior sheriff when I became the jail captain, is it's time for me to make a culture change, you know, bring back fairness and consistency, bring back seniority, make it mean something. Let's be professional, have great integrity. And that's kind of where I want the direction to maintain. And so, you know, right now and 10 years down the road, I'm pretty happy with where I am.
Right. And obviously you see yourself still connected to that front line, correct?
That is correct. Yeah. Cause it always whenever I see an enforcement officer come in that used to work in the jail and they're treating staff poorly, that really upsets me because they have lost that jail drive. They've lost where they have came from. And it's my duty to stay in that line.
If I was a frontline officer and, maybe one day that is my dream to grab into that administrative position, what is some advice that you would give me from day one?
Ask questions. Day one, ask questions. Get into training, specifically the legal-based side of corrections. I didn't really know that realm until I became the jail administrator. And that was one of the most important things I did, because I understood that when an inmate says, you're violating my constitutional rights, I'm going to sue you. I was a little taken back by that before, but now that I've learned the legal side of corrections, I can honestly sit there and say, I'm not afraid of that anymore. So questions, training, legal-based stuff, get online, watch your videos. Number one, I've started to do that today. So it's great stuff.
By the way, it's great to have you on. Russ would have been part of this dialogue, guys, but Russ will probably be on with us later today. So if you're available later on tonight, we'll have a panel discussion, and that will give me something for Saturday or Sunday to post. But in closing, do you have anything you want to say to my audience?
I just say it's been a privilege and a pleasure to be on the show, and, keep up the great work. We do a dirty job and we're not recognized at all. And it's people like you, Anthony, that are recognizing corrections nationwide. And for that, I thank you.
Well, I'm honored. And guys, what I'm going to do is when we have a panel discussion, we're going to explore more on the jail end. Again, I'm still getting myself familiarized with some of the questions that we're going to ask. Maybe that will come across during the dialogue that we have later with Russ. If possible, the discussion that we'll be posting tomorrow will be about obligation. There's some areas I want to cover that I feel I didn't cover on the first part, just something when it comes to concession and responsibility that I want to add towards that. And again, it's great to see someone from the jail side. I'm sure you're going to have a home here on Tier Talk, because it's been, again, got to get more people representing that jail. And they're 100% correct, because obviously the work that you do behind that wall is just work that needs to have that respect, like you said. So anything that I could do to play a part of that. And just thank you for taking your time. You were extremely busy, I'm sure, but when you noticed that we were going to get ready to give something out to the community, our community of correctional professionals, you were willing to stop what you were doing to help us get that information out there. So again, I appreciate you, Andrew. And as always, guys, the show is Tier Talk. If you haven't, please subscribe, interact, engage, comment, hit that bell. Bell's going to notify you every time I post up a video. Stay safe.